Python while loop lesson. Part 1, Introduction to the while loop. Welcome to a lesson dedicated to another fundamental control flow tool in Python, the while loop. What is a while loop? The while loop in Python is used to repeatedly execute a block of code as long as a certain condition is true. As soon as the condition becomes false, the loop terminates. This makes it ideal for situations where you don't know in advance how many times the code needs to be executed. Imagine you want to keep asking a user for input until they enter the correct answer, or perform an operation until a counter reaches a specific value. This is where the while loop comes in handy. Basic syntax. The basic syntax of a while loop looks like this: Python. While condition is true, hashtag code block to be executed as long as the condition is true. Hashtag must be indented. Hashtag important, inside the loop, there must be something that will eventually make the condition false, hashtag otherwise you will get an infinite loop. While, a keyword that signifies the beginning of the loop. Condition is true, this is any Boolean expression, like in if statements, that can evaluate to true or false. The loop will continue as long as this condition is true. Colon must be placed at the end of the while line. Indented code block, all lines that are part of the loop must have the same indentation, usually 4 spaces. Once the indentation ends, the loop is considered finished. Key concepts. Condition, an expression that is evaluated before each loop iteration. If it's true, the loop continues; if false, the loop stops. Infinite loop, a loop whose condition always remains true, and therefore it never terminates. This is a common error to avoid. Loop variable, a variable that is used in the loop's condition and is modified within the loop body to eventually make the condition false. When to use while versus for. Use for when you know the number of iterations in advance. E.g. for each item in a list, or to perform n times using range. Use while when the number of iterations is unknown and depends on a specific condition being met. E.g., until the user types stop, until a value becomes less than 0. Part 2, 10 examples of while loop usage in Python. Let's explore 10 detailed examples to understand how the while loop works in various scenarios. Example 1, Simple Counter. This example shows how to use a while loop to count from 1 to 5. Step 1, Initialize the counter variable. Step 2, Set the condition for the loop. Step 3, Print the current counter value. Step 4, Increment the counter, essential to avoid an infinite loop. Step-by-step explanation, the count variable is initialized to 1. The while count equals 5, loop begins. Iteration 1, count, 1, is less than or equal to 5. Condition is true. Counter, 1, is printed. Count becomes 2. Iteration 2, count, 2, is less than or equal to 5. Condition is true. Counter, 2, is printed. Count becomes 3. And so on, until iteration 5, count, 5, is less than or equal to 5. Condition is true. Counter, 5, is printed. Count becomes 6. Condition check, count, 6, is not less than or equal to 5. Condition is false. The loop terminates. Example 2, Countdown. This example shows how to use a while loop for a countdown. Step 1, initialize the starting value. Step 2, set the condition for the loop. Step 3, print the current value. Step 4, decrement the value. Step 5, message after the loop. Step-by-step explanation. Countdown is initialized to 5. The while countdown 0 loop begins. Iterations. In each iteration, countdown is printed, then decrement by 1. The loop continues until countdown becomes 0. When countdown becomes 0, the condition countdown 0 becomes false. The loop terminates. The line print, liftoff, is executed. Example 3, user input loop, with a sentinel value. This example shows how to keep asking for input until the user enters a specific sentinel value, e.g., exit. Step 1, initialize the input variable, empty string or any initial value. Step 2, set the condition, continue until the user types exit. Step 3, prompt the user for input. Step 4, print the entered message, if it's not, exit. Step 5, message after exiting the loop. Step-by-step explanation, user_input is initialized to an empty string. The while user_input equals exit loop begins. Iterations, in each iteration, the program prompts for input. If the input is not exit, it's printed. The loop continues until the user types exit. Once user_input becomes exit, the condition user_input equals exit becomes false. The loop terminates. Print, program finished, is executed. Example 4, Input Validation Loop. This example demonstrates how to use while to repeatedly ask for input until the user provides valid data, e.g. a number. Step 1, initialize a validity flag. Step 2, continue the loop until input is valid. Step 3, prompt for input. Step 5, code after successful input. Step-by-step explanation, is_valid_input is initialized to false. Age is initialized to 0. The while not is_valid_input loop begins. Condition is true. Iterations, the program prompts for age. The try-except block attempts to convert the input to a number. If input is not a number, value error, or the number is not in range, 1 to 120, an error message is printed, and is_valid_input remains false. If input is valid, is_valid_input becomes true. Once is_valid_input becomes true, the condition not is_valid_input becomes false. The loop terminates. Print, "Thank you for your age," is executed. Example 5, infinite loop while true with break. This approach is often used to create an infinite loop that continues until explicitly broken by a break statement. Step 1, create an infinite loop. Step 2, prompt for input. Step 3. Check the condition for exiting. Step 4. Perform actions, if not, stop. Step-by-step explanation. The while true loop begins. The condition is always true. Iterations. The program prompts for a command. If command is stop, a message is printed, and the break statement immediately terminates the loop. Otherwise, a message about executing the command is printed, and the loop continues. Example 6. Sum of numbers using while. This example shows how to accumulate a sum of numbers until it reaches a certain value. Step 1. Initialize variables. Step 2. Continue summing while the sum is less than 15. Step 3. Add the current number to the sum. Step 4. Increment the number for the next iteration. Step-by-step explanation. Hashtag current_sum and number are initialized. Hashtag the while current_sum greater than 15 loop begins. Hashtag iterations. In each iteration, number is added to current_sum. Hashtag intermediate results are printed, and number is increment. Hashtag the loop continues until current_sum reaches 15. Hashtag when current_sum becomes 15, the condition current_sum greater than 15 becomes false. The loop terminates. Example 7. Break statement in while, mid-loop check. An example of using break to exit a loop based on a condition checked somewhere within the loop body. Step 1. Initialize a counter. Step 2. Start the loop. Step 3. condition for break. Step-by-step explanation, I is initialized to 0. The while I greater than 10 loop begins. Iterations, the current I is printed. I is increment by 1. The if I equals 5, condition is checked. When I becomes 5, the condition is true, a message is printed, and break terminates the loop. Subsequent values, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, are not processed, even though I greater than 10 is still true. Example 8, continue statement in while. The continue statement is used to skip the remainder of the current loop iteration and proceed to the next iteration. Step 1, initialize a counter. Step 2, start the loop. Important to increment number first to avoid infinite loop if continue triggers immediately. Jump to the next iteration. Step 4, print only odd numbers. Step-by-step explanation, number is initialized to 0. The while number greater than 10 loop begins. Iterations, number is increment by 1. It checks if number is even. If number is even, skipping is printed, and continue immediately jumps to the next iteration, skipping print, F processing. If number is odd, processing is printed. The loop continues until number becomes 10. After processing 9, odd, and 10, even, the loop terminates. Example 9, while loop with else block. The else block in a while loop executes if the loop completed normally, i.e. its condition became false, and was not terminated by a break statement. Step 1, initialize a counter. Step 2, loop with a condition. Step 3, the else block, which will execute if the loop wasn't broken. Count is initialized to 0. The while count to 3 loop executes 3 times, for count equals 0, 1, 2. When count becomes 3, the condition count 3 becomes false. The loop terminates normally. Since the loop finished normally, the else block is executed. For comparison, if break is added loop is broken. Example 10, Nested While Loops, Multiplication Table. This example shows how one while loop can be nested inside another. Step 1, initialize counter for the outer loop, rows. Step 2, outer loop. Step 3, initialize counter for the inner loop, columns. Step 4, inner loop. Step 5, print the multiplication result. Increment inner loop counter. Separator between rows of the table. Increment outer loop counter. Step-by-step explanation, the outer loop starts with I equals 1. Inside the outer loop, j is reset to 1. The inner loop executes, j equals 1, 1 times 1 is equal to 1 is printed. J becomes 2. J equals 2, 1 times 2 is equal to 2 is printed. J becomes 3. J equals 3, 1 times 3 is equal to 3 is printed. J becomes 4. The condition j equals 3 becomes false. The inner loop terminates. Is printed. The outer loop increments I to 2. The process repeats. The inner loop executes completely again for I equals 2. Then for I equals 3. When I becomes 4, the condition I equals 3 becomes false. The outer loop terminates. Conclusion. The while loop is a powerful tool for controlling program flow in Python, especially when the number of iterations is not known in advance. It's crucial to always ensure that the loop's condition will eventually become false to avoid infinite loops. Combined with break and continue, it offers great flexibility in building program logic. Practice exercise. Write a program that generates a random number between 1 and 100. Use import random and random.randint, 100. Use a while loop to let the user guess this number. After each guess, tell them if their number is higher or lower than the target. The loop should end when the user guesses the correct number.